echoes and roots. I'm Sabine, and I guide you back to nature, your inner wisdom, and our ancestral ways of living in harmony with Mother Earth and the cosmos. Hello and welcome everybody. Thanks for being here. And today's topic is Ascension. And what is Ascension actually? What is the process we are going through at this moment from an energetic perspective? And I've kind of not just, but recently I've been to Menorca, because Menorca has so many megalithic sites. It has over 1,500 archaeological sites on a tiny island. Menorca is an island in front of Spain, in front of Barcelona. If you don't know, it's a tiny island. You can drive in 1 hour from one side to the other. And it has an astonishing amount of temples and really fascinating temples. It's the only place in the world that also has T-shaped pillar enclosures, just like the very famous temples of Göbekli Tepe. If you are into history, you might know of Göbekli Tepe. It's a site that's been discovered in Turkey. It's not just one site, it's many different T-shaped enclosures there, and they have been dated to being as old as 12,000. That's the official dating, and if we consider that most of the official dating isn't even as old enough as the sites are really, but that's the official dating. So that is incredible because it's been dated older than anything else we know, even though when you follow me for a while you will know that the majority of dating of our sites is incorrect because we just don't have the means to date them correctly. It's not that on purpose the history is like all distorted. Of course there is distorted history also purposefully, but when it comes to dating, it's really difficult to do that because the methods we are using is either just we're basing it literally off what is the textbook history we have. So, and the textbook history is constantly changed. So, and then we have sometimes carbon dating, but then it's still the question, where is that material being taken from? And we don't really work a lot with astronomical dating because here again there is the possession of that you have to factor in, and so yeah, it's not as easy to date sites correctly. But Göbekli Tepe is seen as one of the oldest sites, and it's very fascinating. And so the only other site we have on the planet where we found T-shaped enclosed pillars is on Menorca. And it's not just that, they have, oh my God, it's an incredible amount of different ceremonial sites underground, different caves and cliffs. It's just incredible, and I will tell you a little bit about some, because when I was there, what I really felt is that these were all ceremonial sites, primarily ceremonial sites, and they've been really used for ascension practices. And now comes the question, why is that actually so important? What were we trying to achieve? So from my perspective, ascension really means that we are getting back into vibrational harmony with our soul's frequency and with God's frequency, with the frequency of the God field. And in my last podcast on the history of humanity, I spoke about that. We have a 15-dimensional time matrix that we are living in, and so the God field is the 13, 14, 15 dimension, and it's a field of sound from which then 3 different rays, color rays, originate. And that field is really, it's an incredible field of harmony, of love. It's coherent energy, and anything that's born out of this field, out of coherence, it's living in harmony and in health. And that's why we with our 12-strand DNA that's dormant, but that's our potential, we remember that, and we have such an urge to go back to that. And so what happens here is, when you look at a physical or a scientific perspective of the duality we have on our planet, the scientific background to this is that we are in disharmony, vibrational, with our soul essence, because our soul essence comes from this field, and also obviously with with God's mind itself. And when I refer to God, again, I'm not seeing this as a person. This is a field, a trinity field of sound. It's a field of intelligence, and it's flowing through everything. But to be in harmony with it, to really vibrate on it, this is literally it's the task of anything in creation that wants to come back into harmony. And so throughout history, always as humans, as we were created out of this field, as we have lived in total harmony with this field, we are always trying to come back to this. And the duality we see, it is signs, it is miasms, distortions in our physical and energetic light body that bring us in disharmony. And there's a variety of different distortions. It comes in literally through what we call metatronic implants. And if you're curious about this, I speak to this, as I said also in the last podcast, more in my course, Humanity the Reclamation. This course is really designed for you to understand our history, but also what is it actually, the beliefs, the patterning, and especially also from a scientific perspective, the constructs that hold us back from literally living in harmony with ourselves, with our own soul, but also creating a life of harmony and really stepping into our purpose. And this course is on discount for kind of the Black Friday period, because I decided I've done a lot of work on this course. I updated a lot of the classes in the last months because I've myself gone through such a process of diving deeper into the science behind our history and behind the human DNA. And well, I want all of the science to be part of this course, so you have as much depth in terms of information, because information is power. So I really feel very confident with this course, and I decided, okay, this is the offer I'm going to make for Black Friday period. So it's going to be on 40% discount. I'm putting the code in the show notes because it's from now until the end of the month. You can get this course, and there is hours and hours of information in this course. And of course, if you have any questions once you're in the course, you're always free to reach out to me. But now, coming back to Ascension. So it was always so important for us to come back to originally how we were designed and what makes us live in the most harmonious, the best way, right? And when we are in energetic, vibrational harmony with our own soul and with God's essence, we are not sick and we don't die. We decide when we are going to transition. It's not death. Death means we are in disharmony with our soul. Our physical, the body that holds, because the body holds the soul, and the body has a very intrinsic energetic architecture. And that's why it's also I find it so important that you learn about this. It's actually going to be the next course that I'm creating. It's really to teach you all the different, not just the meridians, not just the chakras, but much more about the energetic architecture of our body, because that body is holding the soul. And when we can work with that energy, we literally restore health for us. We restore harmony. We restore peace in our heart, which is, I find it really important when we want to go back to times where we lived in peace. And the civilizations that I'm looking at, that I love to investigate, and the knowledge that I'm bringing back, like Malta, Menorca as well, the original builders of the temples, because they later have been used by different civilizations that brought in their own cultures and their own belief systems. But there's another civilization that has to do with Menorca that is tied to Quito that I have to investigate. But all of these, they basically lived, same with Orkney Islands, they lived in peace with each other, and not just for small amounts of time. So when we look at Malta, we are talking about thousands of years of a civilization living in equality, in peace. When, for instance, when it comes to Menorca, we still know that this civilization, and like modern ecology calls it the Talaiotic civilization, but I really believe, because they only dating this back to I think 1000 BC, but I think actually when you look at the temples, when you look at what they try to achieve in the temples, I believe it's older, it's much older. And also when you look at the weathering of the temples, just how the stones, like, you know, the how much is remaining of the stones and everything. Yeah, I think this is much older, but we do have still some information, even though then of course later it has been used by descendants that have also had lost knowledge, and then by other groups coming in, because we're having here the Mediterranean. This was a busy area, the Mediterranean, where we have influences for all kind of different cultures. So, but what they still know is that this civilization really provided equal access to their resources. There was no class system, you know, there was no hierarchy. And I really believe this is how we used to live, in equality with each other, you know, equality between men and women, but also equality between people, that every single person had access to education, to these healing. A lot of these temples work with healing frequencies, to, you know, these ceremonies where you can heal. Like when you look at other, what we always regard as really advanced civilization, look at ancient Egypt, and what we look at ancient Egypt is like 10,000 BC. There has been an incredible time in Egypt before that, but everything after that is pretty much a class system, hierarchical. It's about really high taxes for the majority of the population. The majority of the population did not have any access to the temples, to healing, to ascension, like this kind of what I'm presenting you, ascension science, knowledge, how to actually live in health, how to live in peace, how to have access to, you know, energetically charged food and water. They didn't have that, you know. So that's why I find it so important that we look at the civilizations who did create equal access, because only when we have equal access for people to resources and to knowledge, not just resource but knowledge, then we can create peace and harmony on this planet. The moment we are trying to control, you know, and limit knowledge and resources, that is always the moment where we're going to start to have wars, where we're going to start to have power abuse. So yeah, so Menorca, I know the civilization, they lived in these beautiful communities of so they had these community settlements, and then all of the communities had their own ceremonial temples. And then all of the communities on the island were also connected to each other. And as I said, they distributed their food and whatever equally among each other. It's really beautiful. And so I want to talk a little bit about some of the things I've seen there in the temples that they did that actually helps us, because when we learn from this, we can understand also now how are we going to actually create again vibrational harmony with our soul and with the God field. Because also when you are in vibrational harmony with your soul, you are really living your purpose, you know. It is, your mind is not being controlled. You are not living on anyone else's wishes, and you're not acting from your shadow self, from your ego. You are actually living true, like God's will in a way, you know, through you. And it's a beautiful thing. This is how we really bring out all the amazing gifts and qualities in humans, in us, because we are so, you know, we are such a beautiful race, because We are artistically so talented, and we have this ability to bring beauty into everything. And so this is what a lot of these cultures did. Now, let's talk about how they actually dealt with, because they also lived. When we look at Menorca, when we look at Malta, when we look at Orkney Islands as well, also the Minoans that I still need to learn more about. And the Minoans are a civilization that they were known for their focus on, they were a peaceful civilization, and their focus on their art, on culture. They were focused on deep connection with Mother Earth, and really also living in reverence to the Divine Mother. And I don't believe it's a civilization that was necessarily matriarchal. They had, like, women had prominent roles, and that is so important that women have equal access as well, right? But I think what they knew is that to protect the Divine Mother is to protect life. And when we look at creation, always creation comes out of the darkness, because the first form that originates from the God field, the 13, 14, 15 dimension, is sound. And only after sound, light is born. So everything comes out of this darkness, of this womb of creation. So that's why we sometimes say it's feminine, even though it's a unity. It's a trinity. It's not neither feminine nor masculine, It's a wholeness. But when we see it coming back here on Earth, on this physical, in the physical density of Earth, we see it as this feminine essence of birth, of creation, because we see it also coming back in women, right? We hold this womb. We hold this really primal access to birth something. And so to really live in protection of the feminine, to live in protection of the mother, and also means in protection of Mother Nature, of Earth herself, was always very important in these cultures. And you see this coming back in especially the Maltese temple as well. To honor, to really honor the feminine, not from a distorted standpoint, not from a standpoint of power or just distorted sexual energy, but from a standpoint of the mother, the benevolent mother, the nurturing mother. And so coming back, all of these civilizations, they lived here also with the same duality that we are facing. And so before actually you can get into vibrational harmony with the God field, you need to heal the distortions, all the places where you are in disharmony. And this is called bio-regenesis from a physical perspective or a scientific perspective. It's called bio-regenesis of your DNA. Because when we would activate our 12-strand DNA, means we are activating the 12 dimension frequencies. And then this is going straight back into the God field. But it's really restoring then this harmony. And there's a couple of different ways of how they did that. That's why they lived in such a life focused on working with energies, working with themselves, and so working with frequency, not just energy, working with frequency actually, working with themselves, and engaging in different ceremonies. And now often we have all these Ascension science, and they quickly jump into, activate your DNA, activate your Kundalini. But what they don't do is that before you activate anything, before you go up the dimensions, you have to fix the distortions, the duality in your system, because otherwise you are activating from a standpoint of distorted template. And that distorted template, basically what it means, and yes, okay, you get access to, if we activate 4th, 5th, 6th dimension, we get more psychic awareness, right? We get more psychic gifts. But if we activate it from the place of duality, of distortion, we are basically going straight into our ego and our shadow body. And this is exactly what's the problem with the negative galactic races that we have so much to do with the Draconians, the Anunnakis, the Zeta, centaurs, etc. It's that their DNA goes also up to 10th and 11th strand, and they can traverse all the dimensions. They have activated all kind of psychic gifts and abilities, but they activating it from a standpoint of disconnection from the God field, disconnection from a field of harmony, love, unity, compassion. And so they activated it from a standpoint of service in self, from their ego and their shadow body. And this is then where you get all these issues coming in, that we are acting out totally selfish. And we are creating class systems, we are creating wars. We are creating fights for power. And if we have more psychic gifts, even worse in a sense, because we're becoming more powerful. So it is, I think, for a society that really wants to align to the law of one, to serve God, in a sense that we are creating peace, we are living in harmony with everything. We are one from this consciousness of we are one, because when we are coming from a consciousness of we are one, I am not destroying anything. I am not like going out and trying to take over others and trying to take over resources, none of these things. So any civilization who wants to align to the law of one first does need to heal the distortions, so that they don't activate their higher strands of DNA out of a corrupted template. And actually, from a scientific perspective, there's quite some dangerous things that happen when you activate out of a distorted template. It does lead in the end to it's called monad reversal, and it leads to a total disconnection from the God field. And that's how wormholes and black holes are created and all kind of things when this happens on planetary levels, because you then just have to run, you're then disconnected from the infinite source of energy, and you then you constantly have to consume the energy on others. You're only running in your own system of energy. So smart civilizations don't want to do that. They first want to clean out and clean up their issues before they rebuild the house. When you make a renovation in the home, you first have to clean up some things, and then you bring the nice things in. So what did they do? What did these civilizations do first before they activated anything? Is so they had these ceremonies where they faced their own shadows and their own ego. So you have a lot of these, and I think they use a lot of the underground temples. So in Menorca, as well as in Malta is a different case, because Malta, that civilization that built those, they were orphan. This is our original creator race. They were already highly evolved in a sense. So their underground temples are really just sound frequency temples where they could engage in the God field, the sounds of the God field, so that they could basically be here on the third dimension. But with the other underground temples that you find in Orkney as well as in Menorca, they have very strong energetics of these initiation rites, where you go into darkness and you face yourself. And this is exactly this idea, as I said, creation, rebirth, birth is out of darkness. And this is idea, you're going underground, right? You're going into the womb of Mother Earth, into the womb of the mother. And there you face your own shadows, you face your own demons. It's so, so important. A lot of the teachings in the New Age community, they really guide you away from looking at any negative, or they call it negative emotions, right? In Chinese medicine, for instance, we do not call any emotion negative. All emotions, fear, anger, resentment, jealousy, any kind of anxiety, grief, they are important. They are so important because they connect us with our like kind of like our own demons, right, with our own shadows and our egos. And it is so important to face them. And they also teach us about what is evil, because we have in our world, we have real evil and real darkness. And when we just always brush over and be like, oh, these emotions are not important, or I don't have these emotions, or I just brush them away, or this doesn't exist in others, we are never going to go as deep to actually face the evil within us, because we all are capable of incredible, horrible, evil deeds. Every single person here, because we live in this world of darkness, duality, not darkness, but in this world of duality, and we have all these metatronic implants, these distortions, these miasms in our energetic body and light, in our light body and physical body. So, and the only way to not harm yourself and others is to actually go there, to recognize that you can. And what makes you, what triggers you, what makes you, what is the kind of the emotions, the thought patterns that make you go there. We have so many things where because we are also often born already into this feeling of the disconnection from source, the disconnection of the divine mother, the nurturing mother, the disconnection of the protective father. So we very easily can go into these patterns where we're just going to act out of the ego and just going to act out of our own wounds. So these rites, these initiation rites, they're so important for our ancestors that we're just gonna face these wounds. It's the only way, that's the only way you can address it and heal it, is by facing your own evil. And then recognizing evil is out there and it's a choice. Like, we have free will. It's a choice what we align to. If we brush the darkness away, how can we ever make a choice? If we don't even say darkness exists or evil exists, how can we ever make a proper choice between what we're going to align to? And it's really interesting. I also think from a standpoint of man and women, because I feel men and women they had to face the same kind of themes, right? Going into your darkness, because it's also, we have, and I talk about this actually in my course, Humanity to Reclamation, and there's a whole section on healing, on how we can really restore this balance within. And I talk about these archetypes, like the dark mother, but also the manipulative maiden, and how this shows up, what are the thought patterns we are having, and what are the experience we might have had in early childhood, or to our upbringing, that make us play into these archetypes. So women as much as men, we both have the same sort of wounds, not the same, but we have wounds that play into these more demonic archetypes. But I think that we had slightly different rights to deal with them, because for men there is so much about men go out, right? They also go out into the wild, into nature, to really almost engage also with the wild of the nature, engage with wild animals, to see their own power, because very often we are afraid, right? Men are often, I think, afraid of their own power, because at some point, so past lives, this life, whatever, they were either disempowered, or they think they can harm with their power, or they have abused power. And we all have abused power. Women have abused power too. But it's this kind of thing, that men have these whole rights are, I think, around power and around using power responsibly, and really stepping into this mode of creator and protector and leader. It's also the leader archetype. And so I think there were different ceremonies they had around things like these underground temples where you go and you are sitting in darkness and you face yourself. But also, of course, when we didn't have these temples, we would go into the forest, into the wild, and I'm sure these were rites that people also did, because back then you also had forests there. And then for women, the rites are also, I think it's also for women going into these underground spaces to be in the womb of the mother. That's also an important thing, because it's often, I think for us, it's also the disconnection to the true loving mother and to feeling really connected to that that ability to the ability, like, to really tune into life and death. This, the rights women are so, and that's what I mean also, though. We have through our physical body, women, we go through our own initiations just by being in our physical body, because we have our period, our menstruation, and then we go through these cycles in life where, we having our first menstruation, then we potentially become a mother, and then we go into menopause, and we have every month these cycles where we literally deal every single month, and also every single day as a woman, we deal with life and death, with this rhythm that's also part of nature, and with the wisdom that comes with it. So I feel women had their own rights. And I would be really curious how these temples were, I think some, of course, were used together by the whole community. Some were potentially really used, by, maybe that was specific for men, that was specific for women. What they also worked tremendously with is water. And water is, of course, it's the feminine, it's about creation, it's about memory. But they also, so with the temples, with the ones with the T-shaped pillars, for instance, those were really celestial aligned. So they worked with also sky energies. And then also they had these round towers that worked with earth energy, with Mother Earth's own ley lines. And then these energies would come together and they would literally create these fields. That's also why we had these symbols. We created fields of harmonious energy, basically channeling, taking in Mother Earth's own energy from the plant kingdom and from the ley lines, and then taking in beneficial celestial energies that are coming down from the sky, because God, the sound field of God, is transmitted through the stargates in our cosmos. It's transmitted from certain planets that have these stargates that are open to these frequencies. And we, on Earth, we have, it's so incredible. We have, that's why this place is absolutely incredible. We had stargates for all, we still have them, but they're not open, but stargates for all the 12 dimensions, and we would be the guardians of that. And through this, all the dimensional frequencies are coming in, right? They're coming in. And so we then really feel through the frequencies, we create these fields of harmonious energy. And then with that, what they did so much in Menorca, to an extent also in Malta a lot, they charged water with it. There were sacred springs there. They had so many features for collecting water, for being in water, bathing in water, working with water. And because water is us, we are primarily made of water. So this is how we can also vibrate much better in harmony, is even when we immerse ourselves in water, when we charge our own water with blessings, with beneficial energies, right? And then they would also charge their seeds for the foods they're having, everything they're eating. So they would literally have this whole life that was just around creating harmonious energy fields and then charging everything with it, the land, the places they lived in, their ceremonial sites, of course. But as I said before that, they would engage in a lot of different healing. And then they also had these incredible sound healing temples. So they had these, I think, these underground temples where you really go into your rites of facing your darkness, facing your shadows. And then they had these sound temples in cliffs. They are so, oh my God, the sound, still to this day, the sound quality is so amazing in them. And just, they have been interpreted as tombs, but and I'm sure later civilizations have buried people there, but there is just, it makes absolutely no sense to carve out all these caves in cliffs. This is really difficult. The cliffs are high up, I mean, how they even have carved some of them out, we don't even know, because nowadays you cannot even access all of them anymore because they are high up overlooking the ocean. That's usually in Menorca where they had these. And some of them you can go in, and they, as I said, they have incredible sound acoustics, and the dead do need sound acoustics. Like when you're gonna work with your consciousness, with your DNA, everything that's important is what you do when you are alive. Once you're dead, the deal is done. That consciousness that you have cultivated in that lifetime, you're gonna take that with you. So everything you want to do to basically fix your DNA template, get into harmony with the God field, so for the next life, you already have worked through soul fragmentation, you already have come into more harmony with your soul, so it's going to benefit you for the next life. You have to do this while you're alive. So that's why the dead, don't need for their burials like sound acoustics, no, you need this when you're alive. And so, but anyway, these sound acoustic, this is so incredible, these caves in the cliffs, and there you can, again, through sound, right, if you know how to make the right sounds, and when you have these acoustics in these mountains, is also, you have many sacred mountains that we're working with the land. Again, we are always working with the sacred lands of Mother Earth. You literally, then you vibrate, your entire DNA starts to vibrate, and your cells come into coherence. That's the whole point of frequency healing, is that you shatter these miasms, which is like the distortions. You break up the metatronic implants, and you create coherent fields within your cells and within your energy field. And that's why they had these incredible sound temples. And they prepared themselves, creating, right, a society that lived in harmony and in equality, but also for actually the afterlife, for when they're dead, that they have done so much bio-regenesis, so much soul level repair, that they can potentially, then for us, right, the promise is that we move up into dimensions. So we are here on the third dimension. So our next step is to incarnate then as a next step on our fifth dimensional planet, which is Tara. But in order to do that, in order to move up to Tara, in order to ascend to Tara, we do have to fix the miasms, the distortions in our DNA field. And that we have to come into more vibrational harmony, right, with the fifth dimension. And this is what our ancestors practiced, and I think it's so incredible that we now interpret everything as like, oh, these were Stone Age people, and they later on, we buried some people there. And why actually later on? So I think these temples like in Menorca, they must be from at least, I would say even they must be definitely older than 3000 BC. I would say they're even much older than that, because when we look at similar T-shaped pillar ones, Göbekli Tepe dated to, I think it's dated now 12,000 BC, and it has the whole Balearic Islands, the Menorca, it has a very big feel of post-Atlantis. And what happens during the last Atlantean catalysm is that part of us, the Atlantean civilization, also went to inner Earth. So because inner Earth is on a higher vibrational level, and because back then, right, we undergone all these kind of, back then during the Atlantean timelines, we constantly worked with our energy and worked with celestial and earth energy non-stop, because that is how we really live aligned to our soul and to the God field. So we had all these practices. So then, of course, we could go down as well into inner earth. And what happened then after everything calmed down, some of us came up again from inner earth. And there is, in Menorca, I feel there is a very strong inner earth connection. That's what I picked up from there. There's still so many mysteries about Menorca. It's I really want to take you guys there because it's incredible. It's a really incredible place, and it's just on a tiny island. You have so many sites. It's almost like, same with Malta. You have on a tiny island and so many temples, and Menorca even more on a tiny island. And there is a reason. There is energetically a reason for this. So I feel it could be that civilization after the catalysm came up again from inner earth, started to build these temples, then used them. And then we had, after the last catalysm, we already had a massive disconnection from our original DNA template. So we had a massive loss of our history, our true galactic history. And this is also part of humanity reclamation. I go through all the historic events, but then also we got really disconnected from our DNA template, which just means remembering who we are, remembering even we have a soul, all of these things. But we still had more knowledge than now. And then we had another major disconnection around 2500 BC. And this is also, it's interesting, this is where you see the Maltese temples got abandoned according to official history, which I actually think in that case it's most likely right, because then we had, at that time, we had the invasion of the Galactic Federation and the Anunnakis in Saqqara, Egypt, Doja invasion, and at the same time they also invaded in Sumeria, Babylonia, and that was a massive major event globally that cut off again, where they installed more frequency fences, where we got cut off even more from our original DNA template, and where we literally went into a big forgetfulness about who we are. And so I think after that time, like, of course the use of those temples, any of the temples will have changed. And you see this then later with the Phoenicians coming in and all of that, we see a lot of misuse in these temples in Malta, but the same in Menorca when the Phoenicians came in. So by the way, I've put a lot of material out on Menorca on my Instagram and my YouTube. If you're curious about this, if this made you curious now. But there was another thing, oh my god, I need to tell you that, so when it comes to right for us, like this healing, so to recap, what is so important on this journey before we activate anything, I think DNA activation is a natural process of, it's a process that's guided literally by our body when we are ready. It's not something we should be forcing. There's so many practices in New Age that force Kundalini awakening, force like fake DNA awakenings, which I think is really harmful and dangerous, because it's a natural process that ideally, as I said, happens when we've kind of done a lot of shadow work. And there's so many other things. And why actually are we now in this whole way is everybody talking about Ascension? I forgot to mention this, is because we have a stellar activation cycle right now. So during a stellar activation cycle happens every 26,000 years, we are getting all these galactic frequencies coming in here to Earth that basically help us with the DNA activation, the Ascension process, with aligning back into the God field, with activating the different levels of dimensions, which is DNA activations, right? So that's why this whole thing is happening right now. And so wait, where was I? What was I saying? So yeah, okay. So they did a lot of these facing your inner demons kind of processes. They did a lot of healing through their sound temples, and then they worked with water. They also oh, there's something really interesting around oils. So there's a whole story on sacred oils in also coming down from Egypt. So when you work with frequencies to influence you, what helps is actually when oils help the skin, the body to absorb the frequency, because I'm saying we are working here with the physical body. Your light body architecture runs straight through the physical body. All of these distortions are stored in the physical body as well. That's why also massages are so important, working with the physical body, any kind of body work. So oils help to absorb frequency. And they also in Menorca, they worked with oils. The same in Malta, they worked with oils. Now, but there's another thing they worked with. So they had these celestial energies coming in that are beneficial energies for us if you align temples, right, to certain planets and stargates. You're getting these frequencies coming in. But then also, they worked, as I said, they worked with Mother Earth's energy. And there is this thing I found there, which, oh my God, I need to investigate it further, but I was so excited when I found this. So they have all these round towers. So the temple structures in Menorca are always, they have the same layout. You have a round tower. Then a little bit lower, more south to it, you have these T-shaped pillar temples. And then you have these underground around it. That next to it is the water. Is more further south, is further south or a little bit down to it, but is the water. Features of where they charged water and where they work. There is the sacred well somewhere, and then they had these underground initiation chambers. And then some of the temple complexes are massive in Menorca, where they had like 10, 15 temples next to each other, multiple round towers. It's like massive, I tell you. It's like, I'm just wondering how big was the population on this tiny island right now? Like, that they had so many temples for them. Or was it more like, it was kind of like some sort of earth, like, for instance, when I look at the temples in Malta, they were fertility temples. And they were literally also broadcasting fertility energy into the ley lines. So the civilization there, even though they had massive amount of temples, they didn't need a big civilization because the energies was primarily produced to run into the ley lines. And with Menorca, interestingly, it doesn't give me the same feel of fertility temples like Malta, but the fertility energy is super high in Menorca. So the nature is very abundant, and contrary to like Malta, the temples were massively polluted energetically by the Phoenicians and others. But and then the Maltese Templars, the Knights of Malta. And then they also the Phoenicians cut down all the forests there. So you don't see anymore the abundance in nature in Malta, but in Menorca you see it. The nature is really abundant, and I love, like, Menorca has so many really nice, like, policies. Even, like, for instance, it's famous for stargazing because they have this whole policy on reducing light pollution. Then it's they have so many bird species. It's famous for watching birds because it's like the island attracts so many different birds, and it's really nice. And it's a very fertile island as well. So obviously they were working there with fertility energy, because that's also what you get when you bring in these harmonious frequencies, because that's the promise, that's the fabric of the God field, is infinite. It's infinite energy, infinite life, which translates down into fertility. So you get a lot of fertility in the air, and you still feel this now in Menorca. But it does give me also a slightly different feel, and I haven't quite figured out yet what. So the T-shape, they're very specific, that they had these T-shaped pillars. It has a meaning, which I don't know yet what it is, really. But so in Malta, they were broadcasting a lot of energies into the Mediterranean to really restart life in other areas too after the last catalysm. Now in Menorca, the story that they have so many temples. Why did they need so many of them? The story might be similar, but also different in a way. It might not be that the population necessarily was so big, but that they also wanted to broadcast the frequencies that they produced into the ley lines of Mother Earth. But yeah, that's still to be discovered. But so coming back, so they had these round towers. The use of these round towers is totally, we don't know. They are open. Now, there are similar round towers in Sardinia. And Sardinia, oh my God, Sardinia is another amazing location that I also have a podcast out that I visited in 2022, I think. Or 2023, I went to Sardinia. Sardinia is another island where you have such a prominence of the divine mother energy, the feminine, the fertile. And in Menorca, actually, with the T-shaped pillars, it's not that the feminine energy is so, I feel there is more, maybe a little bit something around the masculine energy. It's really interesting. I even want to bring some men there in my groups, just to feel, for men to feel what was going on here, because I feel like I need some men to tune into this. Because there is an aspect here also about the masculine energy with these T-shaped pillars that is just different. But the enclosures were all round. So round is always promoting the feminine energy, the feminine flow. So there is also a lot of, and as I said, there's a lot of fertility energy on Menorca. But coming back, so these round towers, you also have them on Sardinia. And Sardinia is all about, oh my God, Sardinia has a beautiful energy. It's so nice. And we also have the whole blue zone in Sardinia, the longevity. It's just a really nice place. But there, I think the round towers had different functions. And I think also on Menorca, the round towers had different functions, but some of them might have been used to be the home of sacred trees. And oh my God, I love this. I love this because, and the idea comes actually from the Minoans. That's the other civilization I told you about on Crete that I need to investigate it, because the Minoans is called the Ring of Menon. A picture on this ring, an engraving that shows tree worship with a tree in a round tower that's open at the top. And that's exactly the round towers that have been found on Sardinia and on Menorca. And there's a connection here to Ireland as well. But let's not make it too complicated because I think there is some of the architecture also moved up to Ireland, or maybe it even came from there, because Ireland and Great Britain used to be part of Atlantis, so one of the main Atlantean big islands when it was still there. But yeah, either way, so the idea is you have in the round tower a sacred tree, and when you build a tower around it with stone, the energy gets amplified and it gets concentrated. That's the whole idea why you build a round tower of stone. The stones amplify the energy. And then that round tower, that energy, right, is earth energy. And the round towers, when I was in them, they held a lot of energy in the middle. So I really think the round towers are built on the ley lines crossings, on the high energetic points. And the T-shaped enclosures in Menorca, those temples, they are aligned to celestial energy, and they are aligned mostly to this equinox solstice kind of. So the T-shaped enclosures are aligned to most likely, like most of the temples in the world, equinox solstice, and then there are some other celestial alignments. But the round towers, they bring in the energy, especially if there was a tree on the ley line crossings, which is very normal for trees to grow there, because trees are portals, and trees are reverence, and tree worship civilizations that have done it, they've seen trees as portals for life and death, where souls come in, and there's so much to this. And let's say the tree was there, that tree would basically then be amplified. The earth energy would then amplify through this tree, and actually then it could really have been that the souls, because some of these, oh my God, I haven't thought about this now, but this comes to me now, some of these underground temples there could have also been birthing chambers, because when I look at the temples in Malta, they were definitely birthing and conception temples, because the energy is just like that. But for Menorca, the T-shaped ones are not, because there's no private rooms or whatever in them. But they do have also some temples that are very similar to the ones in Malta. In their biggest, they have this main center also, where they have so many temples in one place. It's so incredible. But then the underground ones, other than initiation, they could have also been really conception and birthing. And so now, when you have these, because everything was connected in that, it was a whole complex, right, of temples, and everything was connected. And so when you connect these underground temples with the, like say you have the celestial, the T-shaped pillar enclosure aligned to equinox solstice, already brings in a lot of energy on these days. Then you have the earth energy coming in from the sacred tree as a portal. Can you imagine like what kind of souls you can bring in through this, in then these underground, if they're also then sounded, because that sound acoustics most likely too, if there's certain sounds like frequencies made in these underground temples, you can bring in very high vibrational souls. And that's also the fun, because that is always has been a bit the issue, us coming in here in the frequency fence, we get all kind of metatronic implants automatically by birth, which basically lead to this disconnection from our soul and God. But if you birth someone into a field of coherent energy on the right days, and this is what they have done in Malta too, because they were so, as I said, these were Orphan Hyperboreans. They were so highly evolved in their consciousness that they had to do this in order to bring in more of them. So you then basically can bring in all kind of souls without all of these distortions in their field, which is incredible. And they can be birthed in through the tree portal, because usually we are coming in through our stargates, but our stargates at times, and still to this day, some of them are taken over by negative galactic beings. Not all of them are open. So the sacred trees, I just love this idea. It really needs to be investigated further. Everything they've even done with, when you think of that, the sacred tree, and that's also the thing, the round tower is the center. It's the center of all of the entire ceremonial sites there. Everything else is aligned to it. And when you think about that, all of these ceremonial sites, and they had multiple of them across the island, would have had a sacred tree in them. I just think, and then, I just think it's so incredible, because we used to like gather around sacred trees. This was our first church. This was how we could connect to the field of God, because even now for me, for instance, when I, engage in practices where I really trying to run like higher frequencies through my body, I go out also in nature, because it helps me tremendously to be around a tree, because through the trees already, as trees are so much plugged into the organic fabric of Mother Earth, and they have Mother Earth's own template also got all the distortions that we have, but she is less than us. So she can run more clearer frequency through her template. And when we connect with that, we can also come much more into balance, into coherence, into harmony. And I just love this this whole tree worshipping thing. So there was I was talking about nice trees now. And of course the water was also so important, that when you bring trees and water together, you just have like the real big beautiful energies. So I just think I sometimes just want to, go back in time and just walk through these places, like how back then, when the civilizations were really alive and thriving, and know exactly what they did and feel it, because it was also, think about it, was such a different life. Like now, of course, our life is like, it's so deprived of spirituality and So it's so much focused on consumerism, as I in one of my other podcasts was like, right, like consumerism is the new religion. And that doesn't work for us as humans. We, with our 12-strand DNA, we were always like a civilization who so deeply had to be involved with community and with ceremony and with, you know, being really feeling this oneness with Mother Earth, with nature, with the God feel. Like this is who we are to the core, deep down in our heart. So we're craving that. And when we deprive our life of it, yeah, we become more like the machine, or we become more like some of the negative aliens. But you know, it's just not. It's not our core template, and yeah, we do need to find a balance between. We can also not just be only in the spiritual, because we have to. So, oh, that's another thing I wanted to mention before this lot, because it becomes too long, is that. So what we did, of course, back then, it was a life, right, where we engaged in ceremony with community, where we really worked with like water and sacred trees and frequencies and the earth, and oh my God, they have a sacred mountain as well. A hill. It's a hill, really. It's a really hill, but it has some incredible crystals, which now they are, oh my God, they put like on this hill. I've made a whole video about it because it's too crazy. In Menorca, they put on it like these massive military antennas, of course, to distort the energy, right? But I'm just like, holy moly, like, but back then in the day, there was also most likely this really beautiful incarnated spirit in the sacred hill that was so part of the culture and of the island, of the consciousness of the island itself, and of the sacred trees and everything. So what was I want to say? So there was this part of the whole cultivation of community and energy, but then on the other hand, we translated this into beauty, into physical things. So that is where the focus of art and culture comes in. So these civilizations, not much is still here, but they created this incredible art, because this is who we are. So music, then fabric, especially weaving. When I think of what the Cathars, this is one of their, apart from being like healers, the Cathars were weavers. And we would weave the patterns, the fabric, the geometry of the God field into our clothing, into the carpets, into the fabrics that we surround ourselves with. And just imagine everything that you surround yourself with in the physical. Let's say the objects, your table that's being produced, the clothes you wear is produced with the consciousness of it's coming from a standpoint of love and of beauty and of oneness. I mean, this is who we are, deep down to a core. This is where we always strive to be. This is why we are going into, why we have all these stories of this struggle, of the fight between the good and the evil. This is why we are cultivating. We are literally cultivating the alignment to the law of one, to the God field. Because this is when we bring out our biggest gifts as humans, is when we are aligned to it. And this is the promise of our race, and the promise also of this ascension process is that we're going to choose, because in this ascension process, believe me, we have a lot of things that want to get us off the path, like so quick fixes and fame and all kind of things, the ego, everything that's playing into our ego. But it's a question, are we going to align back to our true values as humans, and to serving oneness and serving the law of one. So that's how I want to finish this podcast. Thanks so much for being here. And let's not forget, if you want to join Humanity to Reclamation, that is really my course to bring you on the path of coming back to yourself, coming back home to who we are also. It's it's a homecoming, to remember who we are. and where we came from, and the promise we made as a race to also, we as a race, we were created to take care of Mother Earth's sacred ley lines and sacred waterways and her mountains and the trees, the incredible spirits that incarnate in the trees and in the rest of the, the plant kingdom, to work with the herbs. This was, this was what we promised to do, and it's beautiful to remember that. So, with that being said, thanks so much for being here, and I hope to see you in my course if that feels aligned to you. And until next time, bye bye. Follow me on Instagram for grounded spirituality, ancient wisdom, and nature-based living.